send the link to Chris Martinez. Kendra, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you now.
I can't see the. Yes, I need to be co-host. So we can start hearing folks and making an announcement that we're trying to. Trying to get connected. We get 2 minutes for others to you talking to me? No. Should be good.
Sue Maraska's waiting.
We'll get it in seconds.
Okay, what's your school?
Where I'm at right now. I'm at UT. And then I went to my undergrad in Washington, D.C.
Oh, which one?
George Washington. I'm a long way from home.
I've been to a conference there before. It's fun.
Really? On the campus?
Yeah.
What'd you think?
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was the use of fiber optic cables because I was in fiber optics engineering at the time.
Do y'all hear
Great.
an echo?
Yeah, there's still a slight echo.
What's your
Oh, it could be
program
because of
called?
the.
Higher education
YouTube
leadership.
on the back, in the back end. It's music. Yeah. Checking.
So I teach public policy in the groups and I run my committees in the council.
Great. Okay, so you're busy.
Are you logging?
No, I don't have a code. I need a Wi-Fi.
Is the echo?
There's the green there.
Yes.
So when I do get on, I need to make sure my sound's on.
Yeah. Yeah, this one is set. On mute? Yeah. Is there still an echo?
No, that's a lot better.
We got.
Not that time.
No, it's on hers next. Look, now. Check. Yeah. So even though we're muted on Zoom, we're not muted on our laptops directly. So that's what it was.
Yeah, it has to be from one of your
Okay.
computer, this one.
Is that F11 on my computer? On my.
No, for example.
We just need the chair to have Wi-Fi. So I take it. This is an organizational meeting, we don't have quorum. It looks like. So we don't need to vote on the minute.
How many members do we need, Waylon, to make quorum?
And
Good afternoon, everyone. We have got connected and everything is working fine with technology at this time. However, we are a couple members shy of meeting quorum. So, as instructed, if we did not meet quorum, we will still utilize this time for those that are present to discuss some of the recommendations and work that has been taking place amongst the advisory council and members participating in the report. So once they're reaching out to a few folks to see if they will be chiming in and joining. And if we have quorum, we will call the meeting to order at that time so we can record and utilize this as an effective meeting. But until then, we will still utilize this time, allow the team and folks to share the recommendations that has been presented thus far and allow time for, feedback, engagement, and that sort of thing at this time. So Linda, if you want to take it from here and just kind of go through it from what y'all have planned to share, go from there.
Good afternoon. I don't have a screen yet until you let me in.
Sorry.
Good afternoon, everyone. So pleased to be here and to see everybody's shining faces. We have a PowerPoint to share today. And after having 10 subcommittee meetings, which everybody came to the ones that were most convenient, and we kept transcripts, and we turned that into this set of slides that you're about to see today, which is by no means finished. If you missed coming to a meeting and you have an idea, we have room for your idea. So we will now go through this slideshow. If you all can put the slides up, please. Okay. So this is the front page of our report. We looked at the 2022 report, which was many, many more ideas, 4 times more ideas, and 60 pages long. And we then looked at the report that was 2 years earlier, which was 15 pages long, and eventually decided that it would be more likely to be read if we kept it short. So that is where we are now. We're at about 14 pages right now, but there are some more quotes to add and possibly more ideas. So, okay. Next slide, please. And I'd also like to thank everybody for coming to the meeting, and also thank Kate Carpenter and Cheryl McWilliams for finding a lot of data for us to back up the points that we are making. And they've made this report very good because of that. Okay. Do you want to read all the background information or go right to the ideas? Okay. So the supporting data is that in K-12, I'm sorry, it wants me to turn up volume.
Don't do it. They hear.
It's covering everything I need is the problem. I'm sorry. In 2022, 365,522 Texans ages K to 12 reported a disability in the US Census. 556,000 individuals in the typical college age range reported disability. Despite constituting a substantial portion of the population, there's a notable lack of support and secondary education attainment among them. Less than a quarter of 2015 Texas high school grads who were receiving special education services when they left high school enrolled in higher ed within 1 year of leaving high school. This is the lowest rate of higher education attainment among all demographic subgroups. Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about post-secondary transition support, which is how we get our youth into college programs. Next slide, please. Okay, our first recommendation is to expand our inventory page. We haven't seen it yet, but it's about to be rolled out. We have an inventory page that will be launched in August. And it will be growing to have more and more data so that this becomes a one-stop place to find out everything about the program that you're looking and comparing to another program, all the costs, all the ways you can have it paid for, everything, even the age limit of the program, some of the smaller details. And so this committee recommends that THECB and TEA expand their program inventory pages to include the following data: name of program, location, age limits, certificates and degrees offered, costs, funding sources, living arrangements, and other arrangements, such as a path from a community college onto a four-year university. Does anybody have any questions or comments about this one?
I think that this is Sabrina. I think that this is a great recommendation. I think that adding to that, if possible, if the program has a requirement regarding guardianship, that would be helpful information for families to know.
Thank you, that's very good. Okay, anybody else? Okay, next page. Okay, our next one is about IDD recruitment literacy. And the background is currently a student and their family might learn about a college program for students with IDD by attending an ISD's transition fair for students receiving special education supports. Given the reported 365,522 K through 12 Texas students with IDD, recruitment efforts should be significantly strengthened. And also consider that we have 1,200 plus ISDs in Texas, and that would be a lot of transition fairs for our handful of programs to attend. So the recommendation is this: we recommend that university recruiters receive training to effectively communicate their campus IDD programs at college fairs, ensuring accurate representation. Similarly, we suggest that high school college career counselors undergo training to familiarize themselves with the range of IDD programs offered in Texas. You know, it could be that a student goes to a college fair and they're undecided between going to a non-degreed program within that college or trying the degreed program. And it would be good to be able to stop at that college's table at a college fair and hear the pros and cons, the comparison, the contrasts from the college recruiter. And so that is the crux of this recommendation. Do we have any comments about this one?
Linda, this is Aaron Bangler.
Hi, Aaron.
I think this is an important one. I'm wondering, rather than doing a straight recommendation on doing the training, I'm looking at one of our past recommendations, specifically number 23, that IHEs should be required to include recruiting data with existing mandatory reporting to the Higher Education Coordinating Board. I'm wondering if maybe we can kind of blend these two. And when we talk about, since the old one only just said recruiting data and was very open-ended with that, I'm wondering if we might frame this more as a data collection recommendation, and as part of the types of data that should be included in that data collection is whether recruiters what percentage of recruiters, that sort of thing, have been trained to effectively communicate the campus IDD programs and so forth.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else want to add to that good idea? So Aaron, we would collect the data to see who's doing what? Is that, or what types of data were you wanting to include?
Right. So I think because we could, I think the point here would be, rather than just getting in saying that universities, we recommend that they train the recruiters, that we specifically do this as a data collection. So for instance, kind of adapting the old recommendation 23, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board should require IHDs to include IDD recruiting data with existing mandatory reporting to include things like number of events, percentage or some other data around the percentage of recruiters going on those that have received training specific to campus IDD programs, the number of individuals with IDD interacted with at their, the number of events that are specific to the IDD community, and provide some examples like that, so that hopefully the recommendations are a little bit more specific to the type of data that we want to see, and make sure that one of those data points is whether and what percentage of the recruiters have received training specific to effective communication and knowledge of the IDD programs on the campus.
Thank you. Okay. We're not voting on any of these yet, so are there any further comments on this one, or shall we move on? Okay.
Sue has her hand up.
Oh, Sue?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say, we do all of this already in our college. We've been doing it for many years, and we built relationships with some of these school districts that are large, like Houston Independent School District and others. And there's so many initiatives and things that we do to go to parent summits and invite them to come out to the college. I mean, if you knew all what we do, and we're getting a small fraction of the students, because we're not reaching the parents. Parents do not go to all of these transition fairs. We go to hundreds of these things year round. And there's a handful of parents that go to these things. They don't go to all of these things. So even when we reach out to the transition coordinators in the school districts, and we've got over 35 in our area, even when we go there, even when we attend their meetings and present at their meetings, all of these things, we're still in a large area, like you said, with our vast academy, we are still not getting this. You'd be surprised how many parents will come and say, I never even heard of your program. And I think of the hundreds of things that we're doing and where we're going. I'm wondering if region, like ours is region 4, where we are, but the educational regions, is there some way that they can see? We're not able to get the parents' mailing list or the list of the parents. We had a meeting with Houston Independent School District to start a partnership with them to try to get these 900 and some students that were graduating each year in special ed to come to our college, not only in our program, but to come to our college in various programs. And we're not getting all of those students from that school district. And we're not able to, we don't have, like, if we had the mailing list of the parents, we could at least communicate with them. But, that's confidential, so we don't have that. We go to all of these transition fairs, career fairs. We host open houses. I mean, I could go on and tell you all of the things that we do. And the parents are still not knowing. So I don't know what else we can do. If there's something else, I mean, hopefully some of these things that we're recommending are going to help to get the word out to the parents. I just don't know. I mean, I'm just letting you know that a lot of these things that we have been doing, and we're still not getting the enrollment with these, we're not, there's still parents that don't even know, and we've been to their schools how many times, we've been to their transition fairs and career fairs and all these things. And I know that parents can't always come to all of these things. And then sometimes students come on their own with tours. They're not always going to get the information to the parent. I know that there's the ARD meetings, and they discuss in the ARD meetings recommendations, and the parents sometimes don't follow up with that. You know, there's those parents that find out everything when their kids are a freshman. You know, parents like the kind of parents that would be in this council that are huge advocates and they know what to do. But the majority of the parents don't know that, and they don't know, you know, so I don't know what else we can do. I'm just bringing this up because we made such an assertive effort this past year with one particular school district in particular, and we're still not getting the word out to the parents like we thought. So I don't know what more we can do. The other thing I wanted to mention was when I heard Aaron mentioning the data collection. When we do that data collection every year, Waylon, this is to you actually, or maybe Cheryl, if she's part of where you get that information from the data that's collected in our state at the colleges and universities. I know that there's the recruitment survey that we do, and I'm a part of that. I work with our associate vice chancellor, and we fill that out. But the part that's coming to the registrar or wherever it's coming to the college and university to see how many students with IDD are indeed enrolled at your college or in a special program. Remember, Christine and I had brought this up several times that we don't feel that our numbers in our program are being captured, because I serve close to 200 students a year in Vast Academy alone. And yet when I saw those numbers in the previous meetings, I know that there's no way they could have captured all the numbers. So I went back and I contacted all of the people that higher up, you know, that would be involved. And what Mary Lemberg, who is our registrar, told me, because she's been involved since the beginning of this whole effort, you know, to do the data collection. She said that I forgot the title because I don't have it in front of me, but CB, you guys know, Waylon, at the coordinating center, what those things are called. One is called CB something with a number, and there's another CB something with a number. Apparently, that day when you showed us the data a few months ago, she told me that is whatever when that comes, they get that data, it's captured. But there's another one that you have to do if you want to capture CE, continuing ed, CEU, or C non-credit. And I believe that could very well possibly be the problem why Christine's program in Austin and our program in Houston, in particular, our numbers are not being captured for our IDD program to the coordinating board, because they're only capturing the credit hour enrollment of IDD at the college rather than the non-credit continuing ed. So I wanted to bring this up because I really want to make sure that our numbers are being reflected for especially these colleges and universities that have IDD programs. We serve 200 students a year alone with IDD, and yet that's not reflected in the report.
That's why our description of all the colleges that is being fixed by recommendation number 1, we're really going to capture the right data for the future.
So that's why I'm glad this is a great recommendation. I like that. I really agree with the training part too. I think that's important.
Okay, from what you say, it sounds like, okay, so I work for a nonprofit serving disabilities across Texas, and we have 14,000 families. And it sounds like we really need to push advertising these programs through our mails and conferences and things. In fact, we have been actually having directors of the various programs on some of our evening calls for families. But we need to really step it up, it sounds like. Okay, thank you. We may work on the wording of this to capture all that you said and try to fix it for the future. Okay. Anything
And I
else
put
on
some
this one?
suggested language in the chat as a starting point for what I was suggesting.
Thank you. Let's see if the chat is.
So not related to the language here, but just listening to the comments. And then I can share the information, but just a few sources that may be beneficial to you all is, the agency, we have, Texas Special Sped Support, which is a resource, and we have a whole module and section on transition. And we have, information for families, but then we have like a list of regional contact for every one of the regional service centers for who the lead is for transition. I know you all are familiar with special education and IEPs, and there are very specific requirements related to transition for children in high school and getting them ready for post-secondary. There's probably a lot of different spaces to maybe make some of those connections earlier and helping align some of those things. So I know it's not related to the data collection piece, which is here, but I think that there could be some spaces too that we could try to identify, creating more connections and maybe directly from, and again, I don't control it, so I'm just thinking off the top of my head. But it's something I would happily help try to facilitate is, making more connections between that transition website and the universities that offer some of these supports and things like that, and giving you all the connections to the different ESCs who lead transition, to get more line of sight into the for students, into the just different opportunities you all offer, and hopefully getting some of those students at 14 and 15 thinking about this is a true pathway and trajectory they could have, because there's a lot of people that don't think along those lines, that a child with a disability, especially a child with an intellectual disability, can go to college, and that's not the case anymore. So getting everyone thinking along those lines at 14 gives them much broader and stronger chance at a runway to be successful than starting it at 18.
Thank you, Edward. If at any point you want to show us those pages, we can always have you share your screen. So think about that if you want to. Next slide, please. Sue, can I put your hand down? Post-secondary transition supports. And this one is about case counselor congruency and the background. Students with IDD may receive supports from a TWC counselor during their K through 12 experience. Usually that starts about at age 14. However, this support does not continue if a student transitions to post-secondary opportunities. Disability specialists and constituent sentiment indicate that individuals with IDD often face challenges in adapting to environmental and social changes. Implementing this strategy would ensure a smoother transition, maintain continuity in understanding the student's journey, preventing loss of knowledge due to changing counselors. So our recommendation is the Texas Workforce Commission should consider restructuring their case management approach to support students from high school through their college programs rather than transitioning to new case managers. This change aims to streamline the process of accessing necessary supports. For students opting for non-local programs, the implementation can involve dual counselor support until a seamless transition occurs naturally. And there's a recommendation later that TWC counselor on the college campus be co-located with the Office of Student Support, so that the Office of Student Support could see what a TWC counselor provides. So there would be some kind of natural transition at some point if that is also implemented at the same time. Any comments or suggestions about this one? Okay, y'all have had some great ideas. Next slide, please. Campus disability support offices and TWC collaboration. I believe that's the one I was just mentioning. TWS VRS services may include vocational counseling, evaluation and assessment, guidance and assistance with job placement, time-limited job coaching, training programs, technology services, and vehicle and home modifications. The DSO at each college coordinates accommodations for students with permanent and temporary disabilities. However, disability education scholars report that students must take their own proactive steps to receive supports from DSO offices, and only 40% of applicable students do so. We recommend that Texas Workforce Commission counselors be allocated space within a college's student support office. This arrangement would facilitate the students' familiarization with the office and its available supports. When I had a student on a college campus from my family, I did notice that there were some peers that waited till December to go into that office to say, I have a disability and I'm in trouble. And that is probably not the way to do that. And so there is a lot to be said about helping that student go identify themselves and find an avenue to all the supports that they're going to need when they're there. Does anybody else have any comments about this one? Okay. Shall I move right along? New slide, please. Financial support. Okay, this is the big one. Guaranteeing the necessary resources to support IDD students before and through their post-secondary journey. New slide, please. Okay. Cost transparency is our next recommendation. Experts in IDD post-secondary programs indicate the average cost of a program is $14,689, with a great extent of variability. And I believe that means per year. Is that your understanding, Kate?
Yes.
Okay. Even for families experienced in securing financial aid for students in traditional degree programs, the process changes when supporting a student attending a program tailored for those with IDD. Consolidating all potential costs and savings in a single resource can assist the student in determining the feasibility of financing their chosen program. We recommend that the THECB create a comprehensive chart outlining the various financing options for each IDD program, as detailed in the complete IDD Council reports. Any comments about this?
I think this is great. I also think that I think that this would already be involved, but specifically outlining what CTP accredited programs would allow for financial aid and federal funding would be super helpful for parents, I think, as well.
Yes, thank you. We go on to talk about different exemptions and things. We have 2 more slides. So as we roll out the next 2 slides, there still may be some things we want to say that we haven't covered. But thank you for starting that, Sabrina. That was really good. Anything else about this slide? Okay, our next slide. Statewide financial resources. This is different than my book. Okay, there are numerous scholarships available for students entering degree-seeking programs. Many of these require a high GPA, strong College Board scores, full-time enrollment, and in some cases, full-time or part-time summer employment. Students with IDD often find it challenging to meet these requirements, particularly for non-degreed programs. Given these obstacles, we propose streamlining the process through the implementation of a state-funded scholarship program. Several states such as Oklahoma, North Carolina, Florida, Tennessee, and Colorado have already established various types of scholarship programs. The most recent one was Oklahoma, guys, and they looked at what was not covered and they found a way to finance it. That would just be a miracle if we could have that in Texas. Okay, any other comments about this one?
In this background, would it be relevant to include references to past legislative proposals that were specific to this proposal. So like I'm thinking last legislative session, House Bill 5148 that did get a hearing was related to this issue. So I think that providing that context could be helpful for anyone reading the report.
Thank you for bringing that up. Do you recall how far it went? Did it do the House, but didn't get a hearing in the Senate? Is that one of those?
Yes.
Okay, there were a lot of those. Okay,
And I can drop the link to that in the chat.
okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, there are exemptions. And I could share that page if anybody would like to see the exemption page from the THECB website. But it tells you exactly what they are and how to apply for them. Affected constituents note that disability service offices encounter difficulties in adequately supporting students with IDD, primarily because their traditional focus has been on students with learning or physical disabilities. Staff at DSOs would benefit significantly from increased awareness of the services and counselors provided through VRS for students with IDD. One effective strategy is to enhance coordination and awareness is to establish a co-located one-stop shop where students with IDD can conveniently access their post-secondary supports. We recommend relevant stakeholders consider piloting a co-located space. This is true. This title doesn't go with this slide. It goes with the exemption funds, and it may be on a different slide coming up. We'll get that fixed. What is the next slide? Okay, let me go back to the last slide and talk about this one. And share my screen really fast. Kendra, can you allow me to share my screen? Okay. I think I have it up here, but I'm looking for it. Does anybody have it open in this room? The page with all the exemptions?
Is this the
We'll work on it.
College for All Texans site, or what are your?
It's the THECB college exemption sites. Here it is. Okay. Can you all see my screen? This is the THECB exemption site, and there are a lot of exemptions on here. It says foster students. It says children of firemen, children of nurses. All these exemptions exist. And so a student applying for anything on the college campus can find exemptions through this. But some of the programs have told me that even though the student is allowed to pay less, that doesn't mean that money gets moved into the non-degreed program. So when you're only serving a few students in your program, if you have 2 or 3 that have received these exemptions, it makes a big difference in how you can provide your program. So we do have a recommendation. It just got combined onto another slide. We have a recommendation that the college actually move the equivalent of the exemption over into the non-degreed IDD program. Thank you. And I'm going to stop my share now. Okay, Kendra, we can go back to the slides now, to the next slide, please. Did anybody, on that last thing I said, did anybody want to have a comment about that? Or did I portray it well from what was said in our meeting? Okay. Next slide, please. Support on campus, facilitating the successful attainment and completion of post-secondary credentials and degrees for students with IDD. This pertains to our students who came and gave public comment at our last meeting. And they attend a college that is not purchasing or allowing evacuation chairs in dorms and high-rise education buildings. So our background is this: 1.6 million Texans have a mobility disability that requires assistance, and structural fires account for 60% of Texas-related fire deaths. Annually across the US, fire departments responded to 3,379 structure fires in dorms each year from 2017 to 2021. Of the fires on college campuses, 86% are caused by human error, inexperienced cooks, and students not following fire code. At least one known campus in Texas does not provide or allow fire rescue chairs in spite of the NFPA recommending them. This committee recommends that students who use wheelchairs have access to rescue chairs in campus housing and educational buildings. These chairs are standard in airports, colleges, and other public buildings, requiring only one person to operate them. Any questions or comments about including this one? Okay, next slide, please. Would anybody like to read this one?
I can.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So this next recommendation is credentials of value. Background: Texas non-degreed IHE programs state that if they can offer a well-known trade credential, their students will become employed more successfully. Data from Strata Education Network and Luminia Foundation found that learners who obtain a non-degree credential have higher employment rates and earn $15,000 more in annual median income than learners without a non-degree credential. Another study found that when a credential was awarded by the IHE, it almost doubled the odds of having a paid job at exit. The recommendation is ensure program value by providing known industry certification that is reputable across Texas.
Thank you. Keep going if you would, please. You mind?
Strong pathways is the next recommendation. The background on this is ACC and Texas State have developed a Bats to Cats program to facilitate the transition of students from a 2-year campus to a 4-year school. Data has shown that while 60% of ACC students intend to transfer to a 4-year university, only 25% achieve this goal within 3 years. This program aims to increase these numbers and to save on average $19,000 in the process. Alternately, the University of Cincinnati and the state of Oklahoma have further programs to promote a pathway to consider. The recommendation is to create transition pathways in community college programs that mirror successful models like the Bats to Cats transition between Austin Community College and Texas State, facilitating students' seamless progression to 4-year campuses.
Comments, anyone? Sabrina, are you good for reading a few more?
Sure, yeah. The next recommendation is reverse transfer accessibility. So background: in 2011, Texas enacted HB 3025, establishing a reverse transfer process that enables students to transfer credits from a 4-year institution to a community college to earn an associate's degree. Currently, students with IDD enrolled in non-degree programs are successfully completing college courses without curriculum modifications. Although professors are willing to assign grades, the school policy requires enrollment in a degree program for credits to be reverse transferred to a community college. The recommendation is for students who audit credit courses as part of their program, if they have no modifications and are performing well, allow them to receive a grade and reverse transfer the credit to a community college.
It's gonna take a lot longer to get all the way through college anyway, when you have a disability and you might wanna take a lesser load. And it would just really help if you could at least get this piece accomplished. Thank you. Any other question? Okay, next one. Okay, now we're at the foster care piece. Recognizing the frequent intersection of foster care students and students with IDD and responding with careful consideration. Next slide, please. Recommendation, reverse transfer accessibility.
Sorry, that one's not.
That one's.
The rest of it is, it's not that title.
Oh, the titles, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. They're still beautiful slides, thank you. Okay, leading research indicates children with IDD face critical consequences when mental health needs are not detected or addressed. This places them at high risk of placement in residential treatment facilities or foster care. Nationally, 13% of children have at least one disability. In January of 2022, Texas DFPS reported 53% of children in DFPS care have at least one type of disability. So that's about 4 times higher. Recommendation, LEAs, TEAs, and DFPS should strengthen collaboration with the RD committee to develop and monitor a comprehensive person-centered post-secondary plan that includes supporting the academic and functional strengths of the student to promote success after graduation. Specific guidance outlined in the full reports. And it's 4 or 5 specific things in the full report. And we can look at them if you guys want to.
So just one thing to consider here. Do you want to say graduation or 18? Because for children in foster care, generally 18 is when they are legally adults, and a lot of the things that come outside of school and
I agree, we should do that. Okay, so add in the more detailed version that we have.
Okay.
We're asking for a foster care IDD supplement where it's truly planned out with a checklist for the student with IDD. So in that, are we saying that we need to very specifically talk about what ends at 18 and what continues?
Yeah, I would. And I know this simply because I was a CASA court-appointed special advocate, and I've had kids before that turned 18 while not having graduated from high school, and what they get to maintain from DFPS and other organizations post 18 is regardless of if they finished high school or not, changes.
Okay.
Fortunately, a lot of service providers and organizations will, continue those kids until they graduate, because generally it's not that long of a runway. But there absolutely is, things that cut off at age 18.
So do we actually need its own recommendation that if this is a student that would have stayed through 21, that we need to put that we need to extend the foster care for them to match it?
I mean, you can make that recommendation. I don't know how that would work, but.
Hi, Sue. This is Billy. I'm the delivery person for Academy Awards. And I came over here to the 1301. There's no one here. I called the number and that person is out on medical leave. Then I called their number and you're not here and I don't know what to do right now. So I go and
Sue, I think you're oh, okay.
Oh, hi, this is Kristen Gooch. Sorry to interrupt, but I was wondering, could we make the argument for someone with IDD, a student with IDD who's in the foster care system, that they could stay to 21 or 22, depending on when their birthday is, because that's how they do it in the school system?
That's what
That's
I'm
just
thinking
a
too.
suggestion. If, anyway, that was just a recommendation.
Thank you, Kristen. The rest of this recommendation, in addition to the new supplement for foster students in IDD, would be to have foster care liaisons connect them with pre-ETS colleges, universities, technical schools, and vocation programs. And they do a transition living resource guide for foster care, and it doesn't incorporate anything about IDD in it yet, and it needs to be added to chapter 13. And they also do a preparation for adult living course. It's a big deal to take this course. They're even talking at the Capitol about giving college credit for it, for getting through this preparation for adult living manual. And so we maybe need to really beef this up to make sure that the foster care side of manuals covers IDD, and that the foster care side of things keeps them in foster care if they're staying in 18 plus through age 21. Would you all be willing to convert this to say that? Thank you, Kristen. Okay. And Lauren, who actually works at Texas Workforce Commission with foster students, just put in the chat that we definitely need that. So thank you, Lauren. Shall we go on to the next slide, please? College supports for foster care students. Currently, students accessing foster care services in college may only be reimbursed for 1,000 and 2,000 level college courses. Currently, there is no path to pay for a non-credit program for students with IDD, and similarly, level 3,000 and 4,000 courses are not yet sponsored. Students with IDD deserve equal opportunities to access programs offered by higher education. Our recommendation is that Texas Legislature, DFPS, and TEA should eliminate cumbersome financial barriers and fees associated with college programs for students with IDD who are or were in foster care, specifically by adding coverage for IDD programs and by adding the 3,000 and 4,000 level courses. Comments? Okay, thank you. New
I
slide?
have one comment. This is
Hi,
Christine
Christine.
Price. Some of the developmental courses are like 8,000 and they're not covered either. So I don't know if we want to include, making sure developmental courses are covered. We have one class that's not covered by the waiver. So it's like DEVR 8001. And it's because it's a developmental course, but that's the only class that we've run into that issue with. So, and I don't know enough about the numbers to, what levels, but I think it's because it's a developmental course. I'm not sure. So
Is
that
there
would be
a
my,
way that we could just give a blanket statement that would cover everything?
I think we should do that, yeah.
Anybody
that would be good.
have in mind what that would read?
So I have a different question. How is this different than like the tuition and fee waiver program for foster youth?
They're the same. I mean, there's lots of different waivers. They all act the same in the college. The
Well,
deaf blind waiver.
No. I'm saying specifically for foster care. So there is a state law that exempts foster youth or former foster youth who are in conservatorship under the state of Texas from having to pay college tuition.
It's not all college tuition. It's only classes that end with the numbers like POFT 2000 or POFT 1000. It has to be in the 1000 and 2000 categories for it to be covered for any waiver in Texas.
You also have to start by a certain birthday. It's not forever. And I can't remember if there's a finish date, but there's definitely a start birthday.
So for one, you have to enroll by 25, age 25, or your 25th birthday. But I think there's also one for like if you're adopted out of foster care. I don't think there is an age limit for that one. So.
Okay, and I learned the other day from somebody on one of our meetings that some of our programs that we're talking about have an upper age limit on them. Can anybody throw out what their campus's age limit is?
We don't have any at ACC, but I've heard of some of the programs having age limits.
Okay.
I think
6. I'm
I'm not sure.
Okay.
This is Kristen again. I thought Tamara has said before in her meeting, in our meetings, that her program at Texas State, the age limit is 28, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
I was thinking that too, Kristen. So, because I just met with her recently, I think that's true.
What would we like?
Just for clarification, that program, is it specifically for IDD or foster care? I'm not particularly familiar with any waivers beyond the age of 25 for foster care. In addition to that, I know Christine, you're mentioning the developmental education or continuing ed class that are not included with that waiver, and I think that's the difference in what we're trying to probably point out here.
So when we were talking about an upper age, we were on a rabbit trail talking about our IDD programs. Some of the campuses have an upper age that you have to finish by age 28. Not all of the programs, but back to foster care. Some of the situations you have to start by your 25th birthday.
That's correct.
But not all of them, according to what Ed just said. So I think the consensus was we would like to word this not by listing different 1,000-level courses, but some statement that covers all the situations for non-degreed and undergrad work. Would we want to say it that way? What would we like to say, everyone?
I mean, essentially, I think this is kind of in line with what Sabrina had mentioned a while ago with the previous bill that was proposed with this, like a scholarship program for IDD. What was that? The 13, not HB 5148. So I think essentially is what we're looking for right here based on this is some type of similar funding, scholarship, waiver, incentive program for IDD, and you all would like to include developmental or continuing ed courses with that is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
I believe that's correct. I also think Linda wanted higher level classes too, which would be the 3,000 and the 4,000. Am I correct, Linda?
To finish the four-year degree by having those. Yes. I guess that, well, we have two different asks about funding. One is for all students with IDD, similar to the 5 states we talked about. And then this one's for foster care. And sometimes it works better at the Capitol to break it up because you might get one of them more easily. It might pull on the heartstrings more than the other one. So I believe it's okay to have these two populations being paid for on two different slides. What do you all think?
So what's not covered right now with a foster care waiver for a student with
Okay.
IDD? And
For a student with IDD,
and
okay.
that's for continuing ed and developmental courses.
First of all, the continuing ed that are non-degree, nothing.
That's correct.
Yes. Then if you are going into a degreed program as a foster student, it's pretty much the equivalent of community college. It's the 1,000 and the 2,000 level. But the last 2 years of a 4-year college, not covered.
With a foster care waiver? They're covered.
They're covered?
Yes.
Okay, then why are we saying 3,000 and 4,000 then? Because that came up in our committee. Okay, then we need to move this slide to just say the continuing education non-degree program. Okay.
Unless I'm misspeaking.
We had some misinformation then in our
A
committee.
foster care waiver can cover, public institution anywhere in the state for a degree
Okay,
in which they enroll, bachelor's.
okay, okay.
Is
Laura,
that- Is that the issue, that if it's like a CTP program and it doesn't have an attachment to a formal bachelor's or associate's program, that it won't be covered? Is that the?
I think that's it, Sabrina. It's a
Yeah.
non-degree seeking.
Yeah.
I think I'm hearing is what they're
is the
looking
problem.
for.
Mhm.
Because they're foster care, they are exempt within under that criteria or eligibility, whether they have a disability or not, and can pursue a degree.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that military families were facing a similar thing because they similarly have that coverage, but for students that were specifically seeking out post-secondary programs for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities that aren't seeking a formal bachelor's or associate's degree, they were in this no man's land of not getting that coverage. So I do remember that issue coming up last session. I think that's the.
Okay, so.
Yeah, that's the Hazelwood waiver. And yeah, we've had that same issue. So I just looked it up. I don't think 3,000 and 4,000 are an issue because they're typically beyond bachelor's. So, so I think, yeah, 1,000, 2,000 and any non-degree, that's what we're searching for. Yeah. Glad we clarified that.
Okay, so we're gonna take we're not even gonna be talking about level courses then, we're just gonna be talking about continuing yet and non-credit programs, correct? Okay, and Laura from TWC, you represent foster students. Is that your understanding if we change it? That we don't need to talk about the level courses anymore? Yeah, still be on. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide is really changing a lot and we'll get back to you with the new one. Our next one is called outcomes-based data. Right now, PEMS fails to track public school students in foster care with IDD in real time. And colleges similarly lack tracking mechanisms for these students. So the recommendation is that TEA develop a policy to identify and code students in foster care and PEMS in real time, adding outcomes data related to students in foster care with IDD, and track them all the way till they've passed the age to be eligible for post-secondary supports. Ed, what's your comment about this? Do you need it tweaked anyway? Does it seem doable the way it's written?
I mean, I think it's the real time issue. I mean, obviously, like the way reporting is done, it's, just it's naturally kind of like in the rears. Like, districts will start reporting what's called their summer PEM submission. That's happening now in July, but it's based on the school year that just ended. So, there is no mechanism for the agency to like have like literally real-time data on some of these things from the districts. So that would definitely require, to get to that degree, it would definitely require like legislative action. I mean, so I don't know if that answers your question, but that's definitely the challenge.
Thank you. Guys, do we have another way to say it? So that we're collecting better data on these 53% of students in foster care who have an IDD label, and what's happening to them as they transition out of high school. So if they stay in school till 21 in the 18+ program, are they also being released at 18 from foster care? And who is overseeing them or guarding them if they're released at age 18? I'm not understanding what's happening if they're really, really involved and they can stay after age 18. Who oversees them? Anybody know?
They're not in there.
I don't offhand, but I could try to find out. I could ask some questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, more to follow about this recommendation. So our last area that we're talking about today is neurodivergence. And SB 55 passed, and a year from now, we'll be doing a report on autism as students finish high school, start college, and finish college if they have an autism label. But sometimes the DSM considers ADHD to be part of autism and sometimes not. So we want to make sure that ADHD students with ADHD are also captured in this. The same way we're looking at autism. And so this next slide is about capturing ADHD. Up to 8% of college students are estimated to have ADHD. It can affect one's ability to focus, to make a plan or schedule and stick to it, even the ability to submit completed work. These tasks can become more challenging when moving onto campus without family to oversee progress. Some schools offer extra programs to assist with transition. One that I know of even offering a choice to repeat the freshman year, thus replacing the original grades. The recommendation is that THECB and TEA shall begin to collect specific data regarding students with ADHD. quantity of students with, and that should be ADHD, and it says autism there, graduating from high school, quantity of students with ADHD enrolling in higher education programs, quantity of students with ADHD graduating from institutes of higher education. Recent legislation called for this data for autism. This committee suggested also be collected for ADHD. And do you all want to comment about that? Anything? Do you agree with adding ADHD? Do you want any other references to TBI or any neurodivergence? Or just leave it at ADHD?
No, I think that sorry, this is Kristen again. We should include TBI as well.
Okay, what do y'all think? Do y'all agree?
Because after your injury, your brain is wired different.
I think we should, this is Christine Price. I think we should definitely include it. People who have TBI have a unique level of challenges that they're facing, because it could be physical, mental, it could be so many things happening at once. And like Kristen said, then they're at a level where they will need services like somebody who had IDD or, cerebral palsy or something like that. They might need any of those kinds of services. So I definitely think we should add them.
And include
So-
cerebral palsy, and I know it's not common for, some people might think it's not common for someone under the age of 25 to have a stroke, but stroke survivors as well, especially if the stroke happens on the right hemisphere of the brain, because then you have issues with impulse control and following steps appropriately. So I think that needs to be included as well. That is my opinion.
Okay. This is a
So
good discussion.
Just a couple of things to add. When you're talking about ADHD, at least from TEA, there's no way for us to capture that information because ADHD is not an eligibility code. Most students with ADHD, if they are supported as a student with an IEP, generally they're under the service, they're found eligible as a student with another health impairment. And when that diagnostic code is entered, it doesn't give any more detail than that. So there's a variety of other health impairments that can qualify a child to be eligible for special education in addition to ADHD, but we don't have a specific diagnostic code for in special education for ADHD. Similarly, with traumatic brain injury, we have traumatic brain injury as a eligibility code in special education, and then there's a secondary part of how does it present itself. But again, there's no reporting to the state as to like what contributed to that traumatic brain injury, or besides the year of eligibility, we don't necessarily even know when that child or student sustained that TBI. So if it was a stroke or a car accident or a fall, we don't know at the state level what caused that student to now have a TBI. We just know that they have been identified as a student with TBI. I don't know if higher ed captures that data differently, probably through like surveys and student profile information, but that's definitely not something TEA has.
Yeah, I think that, thank you, Edward, for sharing. This is Sabrina. I think I share some of that, some of those same questions as to how this information would be captured if it's not an eligibility category.
Because OHI is huge. I mean, it's orthopedic, diabetes, everything, isn't it?
And that's definitely information that I would love to know offhand. I don't know how we would be able to get accurate data capturing that if it's not a specific eligibility category.
So what would you all like to do about this?
So on our end too, I think it would be a reporting challenge for the institutions because it's not clearly one of the identifiers in our CB reporting. So for one, like if this is something you would like to add, for one, I think it would be important to come up with a definition of what is to be included when we say ADHD. That can be something institutions can identify or relate to. If this even is something that could be passed or implemented. So that would be very important. Now, as far as the tool or mechanism to collect it, now it could be added to RCB reporting or something else, survey or whatever that is to try to capture some data regarding this, but it's going to strongly need a strong definition that we can clearly articulate and identify what do we mean when we say ADHD.
Given that this seems to be modeled after Senate Bill 55 that was specific to autism and students with autism, could it be helpful to maybe table this until we get a report from that bill specifically and see what issues they encountered, if any, in trying to capture this data and work a recommendation at that time, if applicable?
I think that's a good idea. I also think the outcome of 55, looking 2-3 years down the road, is that there will be more clubs on campus that offer peer-to-peer support for autism, and that other people will naturally flock to it. You're not gonna have to pull out your autism card to go join an organization on a campus. So even while we wait to redefine this and read what the first report is in a year, I think we're gonna be seeing progress that could lean towards students with ADHD as well. I mean, I have a good feeling about it in that regard. Okay, do y'all agree to table this for a year then? Any objections? Okay, next slide. Last slide, actually. Formal peer support. Students in degree programs who have learning or physical disabilities have access to disability offices for student support on their college campuses for the purpose of succeeding academically. Sometimes these supports don't fully serve the needs of a neurodivergent student. One of the solutions is to mitigate this with peer relationships and peer-to-peer organizations. The recommendation is to increase peer support for students who are neurodivergent by offering traditional and non-traditional peer organizations, promote social inclusion and belonging for people with IDD on college campuses by ensuring that institutes of higher ed faculty have a good understanding of the services available to students with disabilities on campus, by learning more about their students' disabilities, and by encouraging community through campus organizations, including those interested in disability issues and activism. And so in some of the reading I've been doing, that there's actually been a nice movement toward including students in intramurals and recreational things. On one of the campuses in Texas, it's a small campus. It isn't a club that says disability club or anything. It's actually called the Theater for Social Justice. And the group puts on one disability play a year that everybody's waiting on and counting on. And then the rest of the year, there's all kinds of issues of social justice on any college campus. And so they go be the stage crew for the other skits and efforts there. So it doesn't always have to be just a straight disability advocacy organization. And there's just lots of ways for students to be included, and it's actually starting to happen. But that's a little bit different than, oh, I'm trying to work through a problem. You know, this isn't an academic problem, this is a social problem or some kind of something that I need a friend. And so this actually is more for establishing even a more formal peer support group on campus in case that is needed. What would you like for this to say now that we're having this conversation? Because we can word this however anybody would like.
I like that. And I think that, I don't know, would you think that non-traditional peer organizations is captured by the example that you gave of the plays?
We could use it or not. I mean, we could find some other ones too. But that is, you know, that is one example. And what we were reading was it really doesn't have to be specific to disability. They can do it through all kinds of other kind of organizations, poetry, whatever.
Yeah. I really like that wording of offering traditional and non-traditional peer organizations, because I think that it does broaden the scope of what could be considered. So I like it.
Good, thank you. Okay, so that takes us through them all. If there was a discipline that I think didn't get to a meeting, it was a conflict against their schedule. It was maybe autism. For some people, they are really pretty well versed on autism. Does anybody have one that they wish was on here that we are not talking about that needs to be added? This is where we get to board them and discuss.
Yeah, there was a recommendation that was included in the 2022 report that I'd love to bring to the group and see if we could add into this one. And that is under issue 1 with the lack of comprehensive transition programs for students with intellectual disabilities. I think that we're definitely seeing an expansion of different post-secondary opportunities and programs, but I think there's definitely still a need for trying to support the expansion of CTPs in our state. And I think that including this recommendation is still timely.
Okay. And right now we have 5, so it would be good if we could get more. For people who have applied and done it, it's a long process, right? Should we recommend a number? Should we recommend doubling them, or what should we say? Sabrina, would you like it worded just the same way it used to be?
I like how it was worded last time because it wasn't specific to the number of programs that had to be CTP certified, but the ask was more about, and I can drop this in the chat, but it says the Texas legislature should direct the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board to establish a program to incentivize and support the creation and approval of additional CTPs within more institutions of higher education across Texas.
Yeah.
And historical data also, this was also brought to the attention of the last legislative session. And this was through House Bill 5146, which related to the establishment of the Building Better Futures program. This also went pretty far along in the process, but died in the Senate, but was put onto local and consent calendar, was given 8 A's in committee. So it's definitely something that I think should be involved in this report if the rest of the committee feels it's still timely.
Okay. Sounds good. Anybody object? Okay, we'll put it on.
Linda, this is Beth. Did you say that you are going to explore some recommendations specific to autism?
We have only put that we're collecting data. But if there are some more, we can talk about them today, yeah. You have some, Beth?
I don't have a formal recommendation. I just was clarifying the process if that was something that was going to be included.
If
Linda, let me speak. Like, I think right now, autism, if we have strong recommendations right now, I think it's very important. Like, yes, let's include them. But because we have to do an autism report that's due next year, I'm perfectly fine leaving that open to for the upcoming report that's due, to give us some time to gather our research and those sort of things. But if anybody has some, or Beth, if you have one that or something to share immediately for us to adopt now, like into this space for this report within the next 2 weeks, I'm happy to accept and keep it in. But because we have that opportunity next year for the autism report, I'd love to see those in there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more question for the group. This is about financing college. I believe I was on the Think College website yesterday, and I believe I saw that 29 acres, which is an apartment complex for autism in North Texas, and an Arlington private Baptist school are both doing a college program for IDD through one is an apartment and one is a campus. And they're private. And I believe it said that they are accepting HCBS waiver money toward that program. Do we have any other knowledge of HCBS waiver money being used? I'm about to call those two, but I didn't know that was possible, and I just want to make sure. I mean, it's been chatted around, but I didn't know it was actually a function of a waiver yet.
This is the first time I'm hearing about it.
I'm gonna be finding out about it. Don't take it as true yet until I make phone calls.
Yeah, I just dropped that link in the chat that I just saw, so I'm gonna do some digging too. That's really interesting.
I also wonder about that one that's in an apartment. Are they actually working and going to college without even leaving their gated apartment community? And using community money. I mean, I'm just curious. So we'll see.
I know we only got a few minutes left, and I want us to kind of wrap up with a few things before everyone has to depart. So I think we have several and a lot of recommendations as y'all discussed today and for this upcoming report. And just know, like, there's a sensitive time schedule approaching us with getting things wrapped up as far as the written language and everything that needs to be put together so we can submit to our board as far as materials that's forthcoming starting at the beginning of August. So at this time, as far as trying to provide additional recommendations or those sort of things, I think we have a strong group of recommendations right now. I think we just need to narrow those down and maybe finding ways to group them, or if any of those can be combined, let's do that. The other side of that is looking at the priorities. So when we get in front of our board and leadership, we don't have an hour or 2 hours to present this report. They're going to ask us those main priorities, or how should we spend 2 minutes sharing all the good information y'all done. So what are those top priorities or recommendations that you would like for us to present and address? And I think between Linda, Cheryl, and the advisory, that's something y'all can start discussing over the next week or so to say, hey, which one of these seem most feasible to get some type of action or complete that's realistic in a sense, because some of these are dreams that I would like to point out, but it's not to say that it's too far-fetched, but there's some things I think even amongst us with internally from our side with Student Success Division may have an opportunity to support certain areas, and I like to see that, and I think we're on the right track from previous iterations of the report. But definitely a lot of these things are going to take legislators and statutory amendments and requirements to make changes. So I kind of think that's where we at, and so I'll leave that, over the next week or so for you all to kind of have that discussion to say, hey, how can we rank these? What are the top priorities? What are most feasible? And those sort of things as we start looking to wrap this up and create the report. So y'all can send back out, and if there's any final changes or edits, suggestions within this time frame, again, if we don't have the research or other things supporting documents to include right now, we can still include it next year in our activities report. We can still add these certain things as time go on. And then again, with the autism specifically, we'll have another report at that time. So
Would you all say that outreach and funding are the top two? What would you all say?
oh, I'll leave that for you all to decide.
Okay.
And I'm happy to support you all's decision. Yes.
Okay, yes, we are at, sometimes we go around and give announcements. Are we past that kind of time?
Oh, this is just a working session, so we're just discussing.
Okay,
Is there anything else that you would like to say, or any council members regarding the report? I think we need to stay on the report right now because of the importance of it and meeting our potential deadline.
okay. Would anybody like to step up as we polish it and be one of the people with their eyeballs on it? Okay. Well, we have a great helper here with Kate Carpenter and Cheryl McWilliams. Okay,
Linda, speaking on that, I would like for Kate to introduce herself and let everyone know who she is and how she'll be assisting with us as well. So, are you logged in?
I'm not logged in, but can you all hear me when I speak this way? Great, is that okay? No problem. Awesome. Well, thank you, Waylon, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Carpenter. I use she, her pronouns, and I just finished up my first year in my master's program at UT. I am interning with the Student Success Program and supporting Cheryl and Waylon and Linda on helping find data and polishing the report, and really just here to support you all as well. This is something I'm really passionate about, and I'm incredibly excited to see all of you dedicate time and effort to something so important. So I'm just here to help and assist you all, and I'll be working on the report over the next couple of weeks and helping polish that alongside all of you all. So thank you for letting me be here, and I'm really excited about this work that you all do.
her work is totally wonderful. Beth, thank you. Beth has offered to help with the reports. Okay. Okay.
Linda, yeah, to say something.
Sure.
I was just gonna say, we kind of, we've been talking about maybe finalizing what we're working on and sending it out to everyone and giving everyone an opportunity to give feedback,
What time frame do you think?
like next Friday,
By Friday? Okay. Sure.
so that we can take it from there and then.
Okay,
Because we really need to meet our deadline of August.
okay. So Beth, do you have time through next week? Anyway, yeah,
We'll
we'll
need to
be
get something
working.
to her, so she has
Yes.
time to review it.
Thank you.
And everyone else will have that opportunity as well to
Good,
provide
thank you.
some feedback.
Okay, I have a question, while we're all here. Do we have any member openings that we need to fill? Or are we full?
I don't think we have a specific, number cap on our group, but I do think it's, beginning to be a challenge in meeting quorum. And I know we just went through a membership change, for that, but we may need to start looking at other, considerations as far as membership showing an active participation and commitment, so we can have and meet our quorum in our meeting. So if it's the date, the time, that's one thing, but, and we've had several people tell us they're not able to make it, but then there's times where we just don't hear anything and nobody, participates. So, and that's where the challenge is for us. Because if we knew majority could not make it, we would have rescheduled, but now it puts us in these positions. So, it's definitely something we need to go back and discuss. And, you know, if someone misses, you know, we only meet 4 times required a year, but if you miss 2 of those, it's critical, and we don't meet quorum now. We're not meeting at the minimum, that's technically statutorily required for us to do so.
Okay, so in other words, we didn't meet them, and there won't be minutes coming, official minutes
No.
coming out of this one. Okay,
So,
thank you.
yeah, this is a working session, and we can try to.
If it's time to vote on the document, could we have a Zoom and get quorum that way?
So that was the other thing I was going to say, because of the timeline with us trying to meet our deadline, we can try to schedule another meeting within 2 weeks out, and that may give us some time to vote. If you all would want that and appreciate that, we can attempt. I'll say attempt. But however, I think at this time, they need to provide you the support and with your leadership as the presiding officer to make the decisions that's needed with the best interest to support report as needed. And we've done that over the last, I think, past reports as well when it gets to this timeline, but we do try to send that report out as soon as we have a final draft to offer feedback and suggestions as we make those final decisions on the report.
Okay. Thank you all for knowing what was in the 2022 report that you wanted to keep. That was very good to do that today. Beth, were you wanting to say?
It's just a question about the attendance policies. I didn't know if there was anything written. I know I have been affiliated with boards and councils before that that talk very specifically about excused versus non-excused absences. And, you know, if there are 2, then that position could be replaced. And so I just didn't know, because I agree with you. I think the quorum issue should be addressed.
Yeah, so right now, technically, we don't have an attendance policy because we were not required to address or have rules for the committee because it was statutorily provided as far as like to create the council, and not something the coordinating board just created amongst themselves. So because of that, we had some leeway and flexibility, and while we can appreciate that in some aspects, it causes other adverse effects as well. So it is something that we may need to strongly consider as far as rules or drafting something internally for us as a council to know, like, this is kind of like what we will be holding each other responsible for. So if we don't have official rules, so definitely on the drawing board.
Yeah. Related to that, hi everyone. My name is Sabrina. This is my first official, I guess, work group, not meeting, work group with the advisory committee, and previously Ashley was sitting in this seat, and so I was just really excited to be a part of this and happy to provide any support in meeting that final deadline with this report that I can.
Thanks, Sabrina, and I appreciate your input. And I wasn't sure if you was introduced last time or not, and so I apologize. Or if you
No
were
worries.
saying something, Ashley might have came back in your place that day, I think.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, glad to have you on board and welcome.
And I understand that Ashley has left the ARC for a new job, a new position, and you are the department right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I am the interim director of public policy and advocacy currently, and Ashley has transitioned over to working for AARP. So she'll still be doing Texas Ledge stuff and doing aging stuff. But yes.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any further announcements today that we should know about? Okay,
So Linda, as far as when we send out the report, like, will that be the time you would ask for like the priority recommendations and those sort of things, or how do you want to move forward as far as next steps?
Just in case we don't get enough response back, should we suggest the priorities?
I think if they do not respond or provide feedback, it will be left to your discretion to make
Okay,
those priority calls.
okay, very good.
Beth?
So just, I guess, two things. One, I can certainly add this when we are finalizing the report, but I did notice that in these slides, slide 7 and slide 11 have a very that is related to the co-location of workforce on some higher ed campuses. And so I didn't know if we wanted to look at that. The background and rationale might be a little bit different, but the recommendation seems very similar. So that could be one that could be consolidated. And then my second question is really just more of a question and clarification. So you're saying that we would put these recommendations in the report, but that we need to pick a certain number, or what are you saying in terms of the priorities that get presented to the higher education board?
No, I think I'll leave it to y'all's discretion as what's all included in the report as far as the recommendations. But I think there should be a few that is pointed out. Like every year we try to ask like, okay, which ones would you like to try to highlight if you're only given 2 to 3 minutes to speak about the report, or main issues that were brought forth that you would like to be addressed. We know they all are important. However, we cannot speak on 20 recommendations when it's time to present. So I just ask that, if there's 3, maybe 5 that we can say these are our top priorities that came from the council this year. I think that would be helpful. Linda, you may even have the opportunity to present these, so that would give you some guidance as far as what you could speak on within that time frame. And then the other part of that is, do we think these things are doable? Like how realistic we think some of these may be within those priorities. Some of them, I think us as higher education may have some authority to make an impact. Others are outside of our realm, meaning legislators or TEA or Texas workforce or other areas that, would definitely need to be considered, in their spaces as well. So.
Have you already flagged those and kind of marked the difference, like which ones higher education might be able to have authority over, or which, have we done that internally? Maybe that's not in the report, but just to know in terms of strategy.
No, Ben, I think these recommendations are fresh off the press. So we will look at these and kind of, group them, see where they stand, and hopefully, between Linda and us, we can kind of see where those fall. Aaron, did you have anything?
Yeah, I was just gonna go back to kind of the timing things. And I apologize, I had to drop for during the middle here, so maybe you covered it, but my understanding of the way we've done it on other committees is that we do need a vote from the committee in terms of the substance of what recommendations we have, as well as the substance of those recommendations, but that they're the final wording and supporting materials and things like that don't change the substance of what the committee wants to recommend is something that can be wrapped up without having a formal meeting with a quorum and published in the register and all that kind of stuff.
I'm happy to approach it either way. Again, if we can meet quorum, I'm happy to have it. If not, we will share the draft in multiple formats. So, over the course of the next few weeks, until we get, final, feedback, edited and changed as you all want, to hopefully have a consensus with a official vote and move things appropriately. Unless you all want to take the approach of definitely having a formal vote with a meeting. However, it puts us in a position that you will not meet your December 1st deadline of a report to the governor and legislators. Our next board meeting would be in January, so we'll have to ask for an extension and have to submit it at that time.
So if we voted 2 weeks from today on the 2nd, that also makes it a problem with getting it to the board on time?
No, we can, that's fine. However, at the beginning of August, they'll start asking for the materials, and it's just, there's a very slight gray area there or grace period that we can get things in for them to submit to the board for their packets and approval. So I think this August 2nd, I think we're fine. However, what happens if we don't meet quorum again? Every meeting is on the verge of that. And then on the same time, we still have to post 2 weeks before. So if
You have to post today for one thing.
possibly, if they will accept it at this time.
Okay, and then it almost sounds like we just need to formally do it by the 26th.
As a council member, I trust the chair and appreciate the chair's discretion to complete the report. That's not a formal recommendation. It's not a motion. I'm just expressing my confidence in our chair.
Well, I would do my due diligence to make sure we have everybody's.
Thanks, Beth.
Okay. I don't even need a motion to end, right?
Oh, no, we're not in.
Okay.
Just
I
see
want
you
to
later
thank you
today.
all
Have
for
a
all
good
of your
one.
input. And if anybody missed a meeting and wants the transcripts, we got them all. So, okay, thank you.
Have a good one, y'all. Bye-bye.
Good weekend.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
I don't know what those 3 new messages are up there because they're not on mine.
Yeah, they came.
It's funny, I don't have.
Hey, Waylon, you'll have to stop the YouTube thing. It won't let me do it from my end.